I don't understand people who want to get married without being ready for it. Because of this, after a couple of years, a person begins to realize how much he missed in his life and dreams of somehow cheating the system. But as a rule, this does not lead to anything good. In time, every successful revolution adopts the characteristics of the tyrant it overthrew, as Barbara Tuchman put it. I think she's right. I never thought of myself as a tyrant, but I guess those who play the villain in life rarely see themselves that way. They always justify their actions, as if their wrongdoing is somehow justified because they are the ones committing it. Standards like honesty, fairness, and selflessness, which they demand from others, they ignore in themselves. If you deceive them, treat them unfairly, or show them no respect, they protest vehemently, but they find it acceptable when they do the same. I wasn't always seen as a villain. In fact, few people I knew seemed to recognize that side of me. It was my wife and our 2 daughters who saw me in that light. In a strange turn reminiscent of Orwell, objecting to deceit and injustice became labeled as tyranny. After the rebellion, it was my wife who took on the role of tyrant. My wife's name was Amber. She was a tall, dark-skinned beauty of whose origin I was not completely sure. She and her mother claimed to be Native Americans, even though it seemed commonplace. In my opinion, she had more of a Mediterranean appearance. My name is Cabrick North, about whose origin and pedigree I knew little. Everyone calls me Cab. My 2 daughters are named Daisy, 15, and Toby, 13. The first idea of my new role came one Saturday evening when we were lying in bed. Amber just made love to me until I was exhausted. I hugged her to me. She turned to look at me and her big brown eyes met mine. "Cab," she said. "The girls from work invited me to the lodge next weekend to make a photo album. Do you mind?" To be honest, I was against it, but not much. I had tickets to a baseball game and I planned to take her and the girls, although I hadn't talked about it yet. It was just spring training, so it wasn't that scary to miss it. "No, I know you like it," I replied. "Come on, have a good time. You wanted to organize our photos anyway. Not a villain, right?" That marked the start of my unintended path toward assuming the role of a tyrant, although I was oblivious to it then. She left, returning unusually elated. She had crafted 3 new albums of our family photos, embellished with her personal touches. She was immensely proud of them. I duly admired them for the expected duration and promptly forgot about it. The pattern repeated the next month, then increased to twice monthly within 6 months, and escalated to weekly over the course of a year. None of this seemed problematic until Bianca, one of Amber's colleagues, spotted me at the grocery store. "Why don't you ever join Amber?" she asked. "Well, I'm not really into scrapbooking," I replied. "Besides, I've never been invited." She gave me a puzzled look. "We only scrapbook once a month," she explained. "The rest of the time we're out for drinks and dancing. Jeremy always comes with me. You should join us, it's fun." Jeremy was her husband. Who would have guessed? I had never heard a word about drinks and dancing. As far as I knew, it was all about creating pretty books. I hadn't bothered to check out Amber's scrapbooks because, as I mentioned, I had little interest in them, none, in fact. Clearly, a conversation was long overdue. I returned home directly. Amber wasn't around, but Daisy wanted to have a conversation with me. Her boyfriend had invited her to a concert. Previously, she'd only gone out with him as part of a group. I had serious concerns about a 15-year-old girl attending a concert alone with her 17-year-old boyfriend. I told her she could go if other friends joined them. My rule was that she couldn't go on solo dates until she could drive. I reiterated this yet again, and she stormed off in irritation. "God, Daddy, you're such a freaking tyrant," she retorted as she left. It was a new adjustment for me in my role as a parent. It marked the first time I realized my authoritative position. She didn't speak to me for 3 days. Later, when Amber returned home, I confronted her. I ran into Bianca at the grocery store and she asked if I was coming to your next drinks and dancing/scrapbooking event, I mentioned. Amber's face turned red, and she immediately became defensive. "I've been meaning to ask you," she replied. "I see, I suppose it slipped your mind," I remarked. Remembering to mention that scrapbooking turned into drinking and dancing must have been challenging. "I understand. They're quite similar activities. Easy to forget. No worries, though. Us husbands aren't usually too concerned about our wives drinking and dancing, are we? Is there anything else you've been meaning to share?" "There's no need for sarcasm," she retorted sharply. "I don't have to account for every minute of my day." "Fair enough," I conceded, though typically people find it reassuring for their spouse to know their whereabouts, especially in case of emergencies. Jeremy seems well-informed about Bianca's social outings. She mentioned he often accompanies her. Can you believe that? I can't picture any man wanting to join his wife while she's out drinking and dancing, can you? She blushed even deeper. "You know you're not interested in dancing," she said. "This is just a girl's thing." "Jeremy's one of the girls?" I quipped. I had no clue. He doesn't ping my gaydar at all. Maybe it needs recalibrating. When did he switch teams? "Don't be ridiculous," she replied. "He's not gay. He just likes to be there to keep an eye on Bianca and make sure she's okay." "Strange man," I said. "Are there any other husbands who are as paranoid as him?" "None of the other husbands know what we do," she replied. "So Bianca is the only truthful woman in the group?" I asked. "Interesting group of friends you have, Amber." "You don't know them, and I don't appreciate your snide remarks about my friends," she retorted. "None of the other husbands behave like dictators, unlike you. No one is being dishonest." "Except you, perhaps," I countered. "Maybe the others aren't even married." "How dare you accuse me of being dishonest?" she snapped. "I have never lied about anything." "You're right, I apologize. What I meant was, she's the only one in the group who isn't deceitful," I corrected myself. Amber's reaction hit me hard. She looked at me as if I had insulted her and stormed upstairs. Dinner that night was tense, with two people giving me the silent treatment, making it incredibly awkward. Awkwardness is something I can handle well, so I opted to watch a basketball game before heading upstairs. Amber was already in bed with the bedroom door locked. I fetched the small round key from its perch, unlocked the door, replaced the key, and entered. She was lying on the bed and lifted her head as I walked in. "Get out," she demanded. "You're sleeping on the couch." I ignored her, fetched clean underwear from my drawer, and continued with my routine. "I'm not sharing a bed with you," she persisted. "It'll be a while before you're back in here." I paid no attention, took a shower, and eventually climbed into bed. Amber sat up in disbelief. "I already told you not to sleep here," she snapped. "Go away." "I don't need your permission to sleep in my own bed," I retorted calmly. "If you don't like it, feel free to take the couch." Her surprise was palpable. I'd heard stories of husbands being banished to the couch, but I always thought it was a figure of speech. Apparently, she believed those tales too, albeit in a literal sense. Maybe she expected me to comply meekly when she locked me out of my own bedroom. Well, this was where I drew the line. Even tyrants don't willingly abdicate their own territory. She got up, grabbed her pillow and a blanket, and hastily departed. I slept soundly that night. The next morning I found Amber up early, looking weary. Apparently the couch hadn't been very comfortable. Frankly, I never liked that couch. It was loaded with countless unnecessary pillows and was uncomfortable even as a seat, let alone a bed. When I returned home from work, I headed upstairs to change and discovered that all my belongings were missing. Upon further investigation, it turned out she had cleared out her scrapbooking supplies and converted that room into a bedroom. My things were all there, along with a daybed she probably expected me to use. I had different plans. I moved everything back into my rightful bedroom. Amber approached me as I carried suits down the hall to our bedroom. "What are you doing?" she asked. "I cleared out the spare room. You're sleeping in there until you apologize to me." No, I'm not, I replied. Let's see you try to make me sleep there. If anyone's moving into that room, it's going to be you. Are you trying to start a divorce, Amber? Is that your intention here? She looked shocked. What are you talking about? You were so rude to me. You called me a lying cheater. The lying, cheating viper, I corrected. Technically, you weren't lying, just deceitful. What is wrong with you, Cab? She exclaimed. I'm the mother of your children and your wife. You can't speak to me like that. Why not? I challenged. For a moment, she was at a loss for words. Clearly, this wasn't going as she had planned. I was supposed to come back begging and pleading, overlooking the fact that she had been deceitful. Her mouth opened and closed several times. You've never spoken to me like that in our entire 17 years of marriage, she said. You were never deceitful before, I pointed out. Well, not that I knew of. Maybe you were and I just didn't know. So, do you want a divorce? No, I don't, she said. I want my husband to realize that he can't talk to me like I'm some disobedient schoolgirl. I'm an adult woman, and you need to speak to me with respect. Respect is earned, I told her. Deceitful behavior doesn't earn any respect. Since you don't seem willing to explain how scrapbooking turned into drinking and dancing, and how you conveniently forgot to mention it to me, and you don't appear bothered by your selective memory, it seems clear to me that you do want a divorce. Then, you won't have to worry about these memory lapses anymore. You're making a big deal out of this, she said. She seemed to believe that the best defense was a good offense, so she continued. Why did you tell Daisy she couldn't go to the concert? I didn't say that, I replied. Accuracy matters, Amber. Words have meanings. What did you say then? She asked. I said she couldn't go alone with her boyfriend, I explained. If she's going with a group of friends, that's fine. Remember, we agreed on that rule together. Well, I changed my mind and said she could go, she insisted. Fine, I'll talk to a lawyer on Monday, I said, turning away and heading to the den. She followed me, shouting the whole way, but I tuned her out. I switched on the game and ignored her. Eventually, she gave up and left. At that point, I didn't care where she went. Daisy entered later with a smug grin. I knew I had to address that. Apparently, Toby had heard stories of my authority and was giving me the silent treatment, too. That suited my mood just fine. On Saturday, I went fishing, and on Sunday, I attended a boat show. Amber seemed to have accepted her defeat and moved into the spare bedroom. I slept well, enjoying the extra space to sprawl out in bed. I took Monday off and visited my lawyer. It's one of the perks of being in charge and owning the company. I instructed him to start divorce proceedings, and he assured me the papers would be served at our house the following Monday. Later, I bought a concert ticket through Ticketmaster, where Daisy was planning her rebellion. I also made arrangements to separate our finances and had a productive week. Toby had a band concert on Friday, but continued to ignore me, so I went to see a movie I'd been wanting to watch. I went to bed around midnight, and Amber still hadn't returned. The girls stayed in their rooms, and I passed the time playing video games before bed. The following evening, Daisy prepared for the concert and left. I followed about 10 minutes later. Inside the auditorium, I found her with her boyfriend using the ticket number I had checked earlier. I sat directly behind them. The music was terrible, but I had my phone and earphones. Daisy was surprised when she saw me, but I remained silent. I could see she was angry, which amused me. Eventually, they moved seats, and I casually followed, staying within view. I don't think they enjoyed the concert as much as they had anticipated. Afterwards, I headed home. On Sunday morning, as I came downstairs, I encountered 3 very angry women waiting in the kitchen. Fortunately, I bypassed them by slipping through the laundry room into the garage. I had a tea time for golf and proceeded past their ambush without engaging. Later, I went to a tool sale and finally purchased an impact wrench I had been eyeing. When I returned home, they heard me arrive, but I quickly secured myself in the bedroom, locking the door with a chair underneath just in case they had a key. They pounded on the door and shouted, but I was saved by my trusty headphones. They're the best purchase I've ever made. The next morning I left for work before they even woke up. When I returned home at 4:30, the attackers were waiting in full force. I grabbed a Mountain Dew and retreated to the den. They swarmed around me like annoying insects, and I didn't make any effort to avoid them. I was clearly the villain. I had ruined Daisy's date, missed Tobe's concert, and deeply hurt Amber's feelings. Oddly enough, I felt quite satisfied. My reign as a tyrant was gaining momentum. Just before 5, the doorbell rang and I answered it. It was the process server. He looked like he'd escaped from the Russian mafia, with a shaved head and neck tattoos peeking out from under his sharp suit. He exuded a menacing aura. I let him in, and he got down to business. He seemed determined and focused. The 3 girls didn't utter a word while he was there, except for Amber, who identified herself. After he departed, there was a moment of silence. Amber opened the envelope and her expression drained of color as she glimpsed its contents. Collapsing onto the uncomfortable couch, she stared blankly ahead. Meanwhile, I reclined in my comfortable chair, sipping my Mountain Dew. "Mom, are you okay?" Toby inquired. "Who was that guy? What did he give you?" Amber gazed at me as though seeing me anew. "You're divorcing me?" she exclaimed. "Well, there's the issue of the drinking and dancing," I replied calmly. "Then there's the matter of moving my things to the spare room, the incident with the couch, and letting Daisy go to the concert. I know where you were last Friday, Amber. We've had a good life together until now. All I've ever asked for in return was love and respect. I've given you almost everything you've wanted. Despite that, there's been this ongoing rebellion. I love all 3 of you, but you seem determined to cast me as the villain. I've accepted your judgment, and I'm simply following the script. Daisy, I wonder how you'll manage to get that Camaro you wanted for your 16th birthday. Toby, I doubt band camp will be an option anymore. I don't think your mother can afford those things on her salary as an office manager. Amber, good luck with the mortgage, and don't forget the car payments, utilities, club memberships, and your health insurance. I'll be moving out this week." They looked at me with disbelief. "Where are you headed?" Amber managed to ask. "To Mexico," I replied confidently. "I believe I can live like royalty there. I'll have maids, servants, a driver, maybe even meet a lovely woman with children who thinks I'm wonderful. I've planned it all out. It's going to be fantastic. I hope each of you finds someone who brings you joy." Daisy seems smitten with that acne-ridden guy she went to the concert with. Maybe Tobe will make it big as a musician without all those camps and lessons. And Amber, imagine all the freedom to drink and dance without anyone keeping tabs on you. I'm sure you'll enjoy the freedom. Farewell, and may you all lead fulfilling lives. I retrieved the suitcases I had packed and brought them to the truck. It took 3 trips. They seemed stunned. No one moved or spoke. After checking into my room at the Hampton, I changed and went to the pool. I swam until exhausted, then relaxed in the hot tub before returning to my room. My phone alerted me with 3 missed calls, all from Amber, along with a voicemail. She said, "Kabrick, we need to talk. The girls and I want you to come home. Give us a chance to sort things out. You said you loved us. If that's true, please come back. Let's work things out." Now she wanted to talk, perhaps explain her actions. I decided to respond, setting my terms. "The damage is done. I've been there for the past 17 years. You had your chances to talk, even moving my things into the spare room. This time, don't bother moving them back. I've taken care of that." The phone rang immediately, but I ignored it. 5 minutes later, I received 3 texts, one from each of them. Daisy and Toby pleaded with me not to go through with it and asked for a chance to talk. Amber repeated her mantra of, "We can work this out, please come home." I responded with a text, setting up a breakfast meeting at Iggy's for 8 on Saturday. I knew this would annoy them. They preferred sleeping in until noon on Saturdays. I relished being a bit of a tyrant. It was oddly satisfying to create small annoyances for my underlings, especially after enduring theirs for weeks. Work was hectic that week as I finalized the sale of my business. Selling a business involves endless paperwork and meetings. Talbot Manufacturing had been making offers for years, and I finally sealed the deal. The money was deposited into my account in Boca del Rio. Yes, I was really moving to Mexico. Fluent in Spanish with expatriate friends there, I was excited about the prospects. I was now a wealthy man, and Amber wouldn't see a cent without my approval. That's how effective tyrants operate. I had packed my bags and had my ticket in my jacket pocket when I sat down at the restaurant. They arrived about 10 minutes later and slid into the booth, Amber next to me and the girls across from me. My briefcase with all the necessary documents was with me. They wanted to start talking immediately, but I insisted they wait until after we ordered. We tyrants are grumpy before our morning coffee. Our food arrived and we conversed over the meal. Daisy spoke first. "Daddy, you've been really hard to live with lately. You're such a control freak. You made me so angry that I completely lost it. I'm sorry. I do respect you and appreciate everything you do for us. But I'm not a child anymore, and you have to let me make my own decisions." "Me too," Toby added. "I feel the same way. We love you, Daddy, but we're growing up, and you can't control every aspect of our lives anymore. I'm sorry, I didn't talk to you." "All righty then," I smiled at them. "Thank you for the apology." "I also want to apologize," Amber said. "I should have told you about the girls' nights. It was just innocent fun with the girls. I didn't think it would bother you." "Well, I appreciate your apology, Amber," I replied. "But unfortunately, the damage has been done." What do you mean?" she asked nervously. I explained what it was, and I'm sorry I didn't tell you from the beginning. I opened my briefcase and pushed the photos across the table to her. These were compromising pictures of Amber and two of her friends participating in a meeting at one of their homes. "Maybe it seemed harmless to you," I told her. "Unless, of course, you have contracted the disease. Just so you know, I'm clean. I was convinced of this by my doctor. Maybe you should consider getting tested. Your partners don't seem to be protected. I don't think it was harmless to me." Her expression changed. Daisy and Toby craned their necks to see something. Amber quickly took the photos and turned them face down. "How? Oh my God. You shouldn't have done that. Where did you get these photos, Cabrick?" "Does it really matter how exactly?" I asked. "Just so you know, I mentioned that I can consult with a lawyer. The lawyer hired a private investigator. He was following you last Friday." "I'm sorry. You shouldn't have found out, Cab," she sobbed. "It was just a moment of excitement. You know, I was innocent when we got married. I didn't want to spend my whole life wondering what I was missing. It shouldn't have affected us. It didn't hurt you if you didn't know. I didn't want to regret that I didn't know. I never wanted you to find out. I only planned to do it once. Please believe me, Cab." "I don't," I replied. "Where do people get the idea that ignorance doesn't cause harm? If your coronary arteries are blocked and you're unaware, does the heart attack not hurt you? If you have cancer and don't know about it, is it not harming you? Your actions were like a cancer, slowly destroying our marriage, Amber. The pain of cancer only hits you when it's too late. That's what you did to us. You destroyed it. You wanted to experience other men? Well, I want to experience having $100 million. Does that justify robbing Fort Knox? Would you help me with that, Amber? It's the biggest load of crap I've ever heard." She got up and left the restaurant in tears. Toby looked at me. "I can't believe you said that," she said. "I guess you don't have enough faith," I replied. "How disappointing. They say faith sets you free. No, wait, it's the truth that sets you free. Pardon my metaphor mix-up." They stared at me like I was crazy. Well, tyrants aren't known for their sanity. They just sat there. Daisy tried to speak, but nothing came out. She cleared her throat. "That was really mean," she managed. "I think your ride is waiting," I told them. "I wouldn't want you stuck here with a mean person. You better get going." They hurried off. I settled the bill and drove to the airport. An hour later, I was soaring through the friendly skies towards my future. Regrets weighed heavily on me. Yet, I couldn't see how I could have altered the course of events. For 16 years, I had been content, proud. Now, everything had unraveled. Loneliness and despair engulfed me. Turning to my usual remedy for depression, I took a long nap. When I awoke, we were nearing Heroica Vera Cruz. I sat, lost in thought. Amber was on her own, ensnared in her web of deceit. As for the girls, they were just kids. I would ensure they were cared for. Legal matters and finances would be handled by my attorney. If they wanted to see me, I would make it possible. If not, they had their mother, for whatever that was worth. It took about 6 months before Toby attempted to reach out. My attorney informed me, and I called the house. Daisy answered, but I don't believe she recognized my voice. "Hi, baby," I greeted when I recognized Tobe's voice. "Daddy? Is that you?" She started crying. "Daddy, I'm so sorry. Please, Daddy, I'm so sorry. I need you. Mom is a mess. She drinks all the time and hangs out with men and her work friends. I think she's using prohibited substances. The only good thing that's happened since you left, or rather, since we pushed you away, was when you paid for me to go to band camp. Daisy is acting out and I can't take it here anymore. Please, Daddy, I need you. Do you still love me? I was awful to you, but I hope you still love me. I'm sorry for how I treated you. I know it was mostly Mom's fault, but I played a part too. I need you, Dad. I know I didn't support you, but I'm praying you still love me. Of course I still love you, Toby, I reassured her. I just don't know what I can do. I can't come there. Your mom might have me arrested. Can I come to you? She asked. I don't see how, I replied. Your mom won't let you come here. I'd love to see you, but I don't see how. If you send me money, I'll run away, she suggested. She won't notice until I'm with you. I hardly see her, and when I do, she's mean to me. She hates me, Dad. I can't believe she hates you, I said. She'll come around eventually. Why do you think she hates you? I got a bad grade at school and she yelled at me. Her voice trembled. I told her she had no right after she drove you away, the best thing in our lives, she sobbed. She slapped me and called me a brat, said she wouldn't put up with any nonsense. She was drunk or high, I think. Daddy, I'm sorry. I let them convince me you were some kind of evil dictator. I see how wrong I was. Please help me. Okay, baby. Calm down, I said. I'll figure something out. Minors can't travel alone, especially out of the country, without their parents' consent. Let me see what I can do. Call me tomorrow and I'll see what's possible. All right? I gave her my phone number, which calmed her down. She expressed her love for me before ending the call. When I consulted my lawyer, he mentioned she needed a passport for Mexican authorities. He advised that a signed consent letter for me, allowing her to travel alone, would be helpful. I knew she already had a passport from our trip to France the previous year. I faxed him the letter and arranged her travel. Suddenly, Tobe found my benevolent control appealing. I was being redeemed while Amber had taken over as the main authority. One of her oppressed subjects was preparing to leave. I felt surprisingly kind. When Tobe called the next day, everything was set. She planned to inform her mother and sister that she was spending the weekend with a friend. She would take a cab to the airport and catch her flight. I would pick her up at the airport and decide our next steps. I considered having my lawyer pick her up, but didn't want to involve him further. I knew Amber would be vengeful if given the chance. When Toby came down the ramp, I was already waiting for her. She flew across the airfield and rushed toward me, sobbing and laughing simultaneously. I spun her around and set her down. "Let me look at you, sweetheart," I said. "My God, you've grown so much. You're more beautiful than ever." And she was. She had her mother's dark skin and large brown eyes. She was beginning to develop a womanly figure and looked stunning. She was mine too, and I could see the sparkle in her tear-filled eyes. "You look good, Daddy," she said. "You've lost some weight and you have a great tan." She cuddled up to me. "I've missed you so much." "Do you still love me?" "Of course I do," I replied. "I've never stopped. I always hoped for a chance to show you. You just didn't give me the opportunity." "I know, and I'm really sorry," she said. "If you'll let me, I'll show you how much you mean to me." "I was wrong, Dad. I don't know what was wrong with me." "It's okay," I told her. "We're going to be fine. Is Daisy all right?" She became serious. "I don't think so. She's acting like a mom. I think she's doing something bad." She looked at me, waiting to see how I would react to her slip. I chuckled. "He's a jerk. I don't mind you using strong words, Toby, but girls shouldn't use too much foul language. It can make you seem coarse and cheap. When we're alone, say whatever you want, okay?" She hugged me again. Taking her hand, we walked to the car. She loved the house. I showed her to her bedroom, and she loved that too. We talked until 2 in the morning, catching up on each other's lives. She shared her plans, expressing her desire to stay with me permanently. That meant everything to me. I wasn't sure what to expect from Amber, but I knew her options were limited. She had no idea of my whereabouts, and things were different in Mexico. Surveillance and tracking, as the U.S. government does, were practically non-existent. As long as we stayed out of trouble, there was very little we couldn't do. Money could buy almost anything. Short of committing a major crime and getting caught, Amber would never locate us. I doubted she even tried. Tobe had sent her a letter from the airport explaining everything. I never received any communication from her. Another year passed before we heard anything from either Amber or Daisy. Toby was excelling in school, speaking Spanish fluently and blending in with her appearance. Then, my lawyer emailed me. Daisy wanted to talk to me. I had him get her a disposable phone with prepaid minutes. We arranged a time for her to call without Amber knowing, and I made the call. She recognized the caller immediately. It was a number only one person used. Our conversation started off rocky. She was sobbing so hard that her words were incomprehensible. This went on for some time. Finally, she managed to calm down enough for me to understand. And then the words poured out. She was pregnant. Hearing that, we both cried again. I wasn't sure how a disciplinarian should react, but I knew exactly how a father should. The girl I had cherished all her life was in trouble, and I wasn't going to let her face it alone. "What are you going to do, Daisy?" I asked. "What does your mom think?" "She thinks I'm stupid," she said bitterly. "She wouldn't let me go on birth control. I've always used protective equipment, Dad. I guess one must have failed. I was foolish." "And what about the baby's father?" I inquired. "He ditched me the moment I told him," she replied. "Dad, I don't even have health insurance. Mom never bothered to sign me up. I'm 17, pregnant, and my life is ruined." "Your life isn't ruined," I assured her. "It's complicated, but you'll be okay. Do you want to have the baby, Daisy?" "No, Dad, I don't," she cried. "I can't imagine bringing a child into this world with his genes." "Are you thinking about terminating your pregnancy?" I asked gently. "I want to," she said, "but I don't know how to do it and I can't afford it." "Dad, can I come to you? I know Toby is there. Will you give me another chance?" "Yes, sweetheart," I said. "You're my little girl, and I'll always give you another chance. Just ask." "I'm asking, Dad," she pleaded. "I'm begging. I've been so foolish and immature. I'm having to grow up so fast. I know I hurt you, Daddy. I'm so sorry. I should have listened to you instead of Mom. I just wanted my way, and she let me have it for a while. Now I see she was just using me against you. It's all about her. I don't know why I didn't see it before. I told her she was very young. It's all right, Daisy, I reassured her. Let's focus on the future. Let's solve this issue first, and then we can handle everything else, okay? She sniffled and shed a few more tears. I promised to call her the next day with the details of my plan. Then I had to explain the situation to Toby. She seemed a bit annoyed. Why does she have to come here and mess everything up? Toby complained. We were doing fine, Dad. I don't want her here. Toby, she's your sister, my daughter, and she's in trouble. Don't you care about her? Shouldn't we try to help her? I used to care about her, Toby replied sadly. When we were still a family, I cared. But she changed. She treated me badly and oh my God. That's what I did to you, Daddy, isn't it? She's just like me. She hugged me tightly, burying her face in my chest. I held her close, running my fingers through her midnight black hair. We've moved past that, honey, I comforted her. Yes, she's like you, and we need to support her, just like I supported you. I believe we can bring your sister back, just like I got my baby girl back with you. Dad, you're incredible, she said, squeezing me even tighter. I'm 15 now, you know, but I'll always be your baby girl. We arranged the same logistics for Daisy as we did for Toby. On Sunday night, we picked her up from the airport. The reunion was deeply emotional, and the two girls spent a significant amount of time reconciling. Daisy didn't appear pregnant initially. When I asked her, she revealed she was only 6 weeks along. Despite the fact that I personally was against termination of pregnancy, Daisy insisted on it, so I arranged the procedure at the Houston clinic. It's basically illegal in Mexico, so we took a risk by flying to Houston. Considering her circumstances, 16, unmarried, abandoned by the father, and unprepared for motherhood, this seemed like the right decision. Had the pregnancy been further along, I would have been more uncomfortable. We admitted her on a Friday, and within a week she returned to her usual happy, vibrant self. Physically, Daisy was the opposite of Tobe, with her taller, slender frame and blonde hair, a trait common on my side of the family. It took them a week to resolve their issues, returning to the inseparable duo they'd been since childhood. My days as the strict authority figure were over, a role I never truly embraced. I had been replaced. Amber was now cast as the antagonist. I could only hope she found satisfaction in her new role. The rebellion had ended. My lawyer informed me that Amber had been bothering him. She was curious about the girl's whereabouts, my location, my intentions regarding the divorce, and wanted to inform me she was selling the house. I wasn't bothered. There was a significant amount of equity in it, and I was fine with her keeping it. I wasn't out to punish her. I just wanted to move on. There comes a time when you struggle to summon the energy for anger and pain. You simply want to be left alone, move forward, and leave the past behind. I had reached that point. She wanted to speak with me and see the girls. Despite her deceitful nature, I knew she loved her daughters. At least she had once. Now that they weren't tools to hurt me anymore, I hoped they could have some kind of relationship. Initially, they wanted nothing to do with her or any plan to reconnect. She sent long letters to them, forwarded to us by our lawyer, and she wrote to me as well. I threw mine away, but I knew the girls read theirs. It was difficult not to open those letters and read them myself. I must have retrieved the first one from the trash a dozen times before I finally burned it. You can't watch a 17-year marriage go up in smoke without wondering how it all unraveled. I tortured myself with those letters from the first 4 I received until I realized what I was doing. After that, I had the girls collect the mail, instructing them to dispose of anything from Amber without informing me. Life was good. I had my children. They were thriving and showed more affection toward me than ever. They took care of me. I went on dates and even met a few women who were interested enough to become friends with benefits. Amber started writing to the girls once a month initially, but eventually increased the frequency to every week, and sometimes even several times a week. She persisted until they couldn't ignore it anymore, and finally they sat me down for a talk. They expressed their desire to call her and have a conversation. I didn't object. They asked if I would listen in on the call. Initially, I had no interest in doing so, but they pleaded until I reluctantly agreed. I insisted they promise not to involve me or mention my presence, and also not to ask me again. It was a one-time arrangement to ensure transparency and verify she wasn't trying to manipulate them. They arranged the call through their attorney for a Thursday night. They used speakerphone and blocked their number so Amber wouldn't have it. Whether they spoke to her was their decision. I didn't want her contacting them. Apparently, Amber had been humble and apologetic in her letters, which made them somewhat comfortable talking to her. She apologized repeatedly and disclosed she had been in rehabilitation for substance abuse and was now in therapy. I hadn't been aware of this. She expressed a strong desire to see them and begged them to visit her. Toby immediately rejected the idea. "We're never coming there," she asserted. "Why not, honey?" Amber pleaded. "I really want to see you." "We don't trust you, Mom," Daisy replied bluntly. "He might try to take us and keep us there." We heard Amber crying on the phone. "I suppose I deserve this," Amber finally said. "I brought it all on myself. It hurts so much to hear you say that, but I know it's my fault. If you won't come here, can I come there? I desperately need to see you. I need to hold you and make sure you're okay." "No," Tobe exclaimed. "You should have thought about that before you decided to disrupt our family. We don't want you to know where we are. What part of 'we don't trust you, Mom' do you not understand?" More tears followed. "Toby, you're breaking my heart," Amber finally managed to say. "I know what a terrible person I've been. I swear I won't cause any trouble. My therapist helped me realize everything is my fault. I don't blame you or your father. I just want a chance to make it right with you. I'll do anything, make any promise, sign any document, anything to get one chance to see you and prove how sorry I am. Please, girls, I'm begging you." I quickly grabbed a notepad and wrote a message on it. Raising my hand to get their attention, I passed the note to Daisy. It read, "Tell her to sign the divorce papers, finalize it, grant me legal custody of you, and waive any financial claims." Daisy glanced at it, nodded, then showed it to Tobe, who also nodded. Daisy conveyed the terms to Amber. Surprisingly, she agreed immediately. "It might take me some time to gather the funds," she said. "If the house sells before foreclosure, I could come sooner. I'll sign the papers right away. The divorce should be finalized in about 60 days. Girls, I hate to ask, but how is your father? Is he okay?" I shook my head. "He's fine," Toby replied. "We're not allowed to discuss him with you." "Could you give him a message?" Amber asked. "I've been writing letters, but I don't know if he receives them. Just tell him I'm sorry. I love him. And I want to make things right." "All right, Mom," Daisy said. "I'm not sure he wants to hear from you. Imagine if you'd had this change of heart before you tore everything apart." There was a sob from the other end of the line, and Daisy looked horrified. "Mom, I'm sorry for saying that. I'm not exactly blameless either. Just do what you need to do. We'll call you on the second and fourth Friday nights of each month at 6 your time, okay?" Amber's voice trembled. "Yes, that'll work, girls, thank you. Being able to talk to you will mean a lot. I'm trying to rebuild my life. I have a new job. I had to get away from those people. I'm working for the cable TV company now." The remainder of the conversation became trivial, and I tuned out. They chatted for more than an hour, mostly catching up. When they finished the call, my daughters approached and stood next to me. I was seated at the bar with my back against it. They flanked me on either side, embracing me tightly for a long while. I wrapped my arms around them. They had grown so tall. How had time passed so quickly? I felt content. No longer carrying the weight of authority was a tremendous relief. As they say, heavy is the head that wears the crown. Now that I was just an ordinary person again, I could hug my daughters, take them out to dinner, and unwind with them on the beach until nightfall. It took 6 months for her to arrange things so she could visit. I didn't want her anywhere near our home. The girls proposed Heroica Veracruz, but that was still too close for my liking. We settled on Tampico. We drove up the coast and had a fantastic time. It felt just like the road trips of old, except now we all spoke Spanish and laughed like crazy. Well, the girls laughed. I might have chuckled once, but giggling doesn't suit a 42-year-old man, so I refrained. We had rented a beachfront condo, and we weren't sure what to expect from Amber. I wasn't willing to leave the girls alone with her. Frankly, I didn't even want to be in the same country as her, let alone share the condo, but I had no choice. I went out onto the balcony to catch some sun when she knocked on the door. I have no clue what they talked about. It wasn't my business. She emerged about 3 hours later and leaned against the railing. "Aren't you going to say anything to me?" she asked. I tilted my head back, closing my eyes. "I think you've said it all," I replied. "What does that mean?" "For God's sake, Cabrick, haven't you punished me enough?" Her voice sounded like she might cry. "No," I said, simply. "No?" "Well, what do you have in store this time?" she demanded. I might as well know. "I don't have anything planned," I told her. "I've never planned to punish you, let alone enough." Planning punishment would imply I care enough to bother, Amber. I don't. I just want you to leave me alone. I understand the girls need their mother in their lives. I accept that. I'll tolerate being around you. I'll even be civil. Just don't push it. Consider yourself lucky, by the way. Look at me, Cab, she pleaded. I reluctantly lifted my gaze. She was stunningly beautiful. Her flowing black hair, creamy brown skin, almost black eyes, and the sparkle of her white teeth could captivate any man. Unfortunately, her inner self didn't match her outward appearance. "What?" I said. "I'm still me," she replied. "Remember the woman you fell in love with? Remember the woman you asked to marry?" "Yes, I remember her vividly, and I mourn her every day," I told her. "You killed her." Tears welled in her eyes as she looked at me. "The girls have forgiven me," she said, her voice breaking. "Why can't you?" "That's a fair question," I said. "Here's the issue, Amber. You deceived me. You were out there, doing who knows what with who knows whom. I certainly didn't. You manipulated me, and it was easy because I trusted you. I would have never found out if I hadn't run into Bianca at the grocery store. You would have let that lie destroy us silently. When I caught you, instead of showing remorse or apologizing, you made me out to be the villain. I was controlling, the fun killer. You turned the girls against me. You tried to kick me out of our bed. And then you went out and did whatever you did. You never once admitted fault or apologized to me." She gasped. "I feared this," she said. "You haven't been reading my letters, have you?" "No, Amber, I haven't," I replied. "I've been trying to move forward. Clearly, you didn't want to be part of my life, so I respected that." "You're mistaken," she insisted. "I want more than anything to be in your life." "Well, now you have your wish," I sighed. "We have children together who want you around, so you'll have to be part of my life." "Don't sound so thrilled," she scoffed bitterly. "I'm not," I assured her. "I dreaded this meeting. I'm here only for the children. What's your plan, Amber? How long will you stay? How will you reconnect with our daughters?" "I'm not going back," she declared. "The house sold, Cab. We have nearly $200,000. I can live here for a while. I want to be near the girls. I'll move wherever you are." I want to be near you, too. Absolutely not, I warned. Amber, if you disrupt our lives, I'll disappear and you'll never hear from us again. She continued to cry silently. The girls don't mind me being here, she said. If you'd just let me see them, be near them, I won't bother you, Cabrick. Is this some elaborate plan to get me to take you back? I asked. I do want you to take me back, she replied. But I know that's not going to happen, is it? No, it's not, I confirmed. If that's your goal, you should leave now and let us find happiness. That's what you do when you love someone. You want them to be happy. I do want you and the girls to be happy, she insisted. I think they'll be happier if I'm close to them. I wish the same could be true for you, but I know it won't. Cab, do you think we can at least be friends? I deeply regret how I acted. I'm sorry for disrespecting you and causing you pain. I tried to explain it all in the letters I wrote. I'm in a better place mentally now. I'm ready to move forward with my life. I hope it can include you and the girls. Not as husband and wife, but in whatever role you'll allow me to have. We can co-parent, be friends, even friends with benefits if that's what works. Just please don't shut me out as the girl's mother. I know I deserve whatever happens to me. I lied and cheated, and I'll regret it forever. I'm just asking for some forgiveness here, please, Cab. I didn't feel forgiving. Can you at least explain why you behaved that way, Amber? I've asked myself that question countless times, she replied. I got swept up in what I thought were friendships with some really bad people. I convinced myself that I loved you, that my actions weren't harming you, and that I could get it out of my system so we'd be okay. Looking back, I can't believe how deluded I was. I was drinking too much, dabbling in prohibited substances, and I made some stupid decisions. Can I ask you something? Go ahead, I said. What's the part that's hardest for you to forgive? She asked. It's because of the proximity, the booze, the illegal substances. What is it, Cabrick? It's the lies, I replied. If you had come to me and said, Cab, I'm bored with our life, I want to go dancing and drinking with my friends, I might have been hurt, but I could have accepted it. I'm open-minded, Amber. If you had even told me you wanted to explore other relationships but still wanted us to be together, I would have tried to find a way to make it work, in a way that respected our relationship. I don't know if I could have handled it, but I would have tried if you had been honest with me. It's the lies, Amber. It's also the disrespect. You tried to make me out to be the bad guy. All I ever did was love you and care for us. You tried to shut me out of my own life because you lied to me. It wasn't about anything I did wrong. I know my faults, but you never gave me a chance. You never once came clean with me. You just lied and disrespected me. That's what I can't forgive. Her tears flowing down her cheeks turned into a river. I'm so sorry, she murmured. I never intended for things to turn out this way. I was scared and desperate. I'm so sorry. I should have been honest with you. I should have talked to you. Instead, I just threw everything away. She couldn't continue. She looked so miserable, so small and lost. Even tyrants can show mercy at times. I rose and embraced her. She buried her tear-streaked face against my chest and wept uncontrollably. Amber, you haven't lost everything, I reassured her. The girls want you back in their lives. They want you, and I will try to forgive you so we can be the parents they need. We won't be together again, but if you stay on track, maybe we can be friends. Have you really thought about staying here? If you're okay with it, I want to, she replied. Just hold me for a moment, Cab. I'll be okay soon. All right, we'll take it step by step, I said. Let's see how things go this weekend. If it goes well, you can come home with us. You can even stay with us until you find your own place. Would you like that? She nodded against my chest. Yes, Cab, more than anything. I'll behave, I promise. And she did. The girls were overjoyed. We explored Tampico together and had a great time. Amber stayed late and returned to her hotel when the girls went to bed. She came back early the next morning, and we had breakfast together and spent the day as a family. On Monday, she arrived with 12 bags, and we managed to fit everything into the back of our Escalade. We sang and laughed on the way home, and the girls began helping Amber practice her Spanish. She wasn't fluent, but having been around me long enough, she had picked up some useful phrases and words. The girls and I had a rule. We spoke only English in the house and only Spanish outside. It would be a challenge for Amber at first, but she'd get plenty of practice. And the sooner she learned the language, the sooner she'd blend in. After 3 days with us, she asked for help finding her own place. It took a while. For expats, it's best to live in neighborhoods with others like them. The police are conducting more careful surveillance, which leads to a decrease in the crime rate. We searched on and off for about 3 weeks. The girls wondered if she could stay with us permanently. I firmly declined, and they dropped the idea immediately. It was a Tuesday evening during the 4th week of Amber staying with us. The girls and Amber were in bed, and I had stayed up a bit later, surfing the net on my computer. Suddenly, I felt someone approach from behind. 2 brown arms wrapped around my neck, and I caught Amber's scent. I could feel her large, firm breasts against my shoulders and the back of my neck. "What are you doing?" she whispered in my ear. "Considering hot rods," I replied. "Look at that too, Amber." It sparkled with a bright red car decorated with branded flames, which I couldn't help but admire. "And look at that beauty next to him," she teased. "I think you're more interested in girls, and you're using hot rods as an excuse." I chuckled. "Yes, you caught me." She stood up and took a few steps back. "Look at me, Cab," she said. I turned around in my chair and my breath caught in my throat. She was wearing one of my old button-down shirts tied at the waist. My mouth is dry. I always knew Amber was stunning. "What are you doing, Amber?" I asked. "Is this another attempt to be together again?" She came closer and cupped my face in her hands. "No, Cab, no, don't think like that. I'm done with the games. It's just Amber who just wants something more. It's been a long time since I've been with someone, and you've been alone for too long. Why not us? No obligations, no expectations. You're free. I'm free. You're great, Cab. It's the best thing I've ever had. Let's enjoy each other. Take me to bed." "I mentioned the luggage," I said. "Forget about the damn luggage," she snapped. "I'm telling you, there's no luggage. I'm more attractive than that hot road girl. Look at me." It was an amazing time spent together. Later, when I rolled away, she found comfort in my arms. I held her close, admiring her body as she regained her composure. "God, I've missed this, Cab," she muttered. "No one will ever compare to you. Can we do this again? Regularly? Please, I need this. I'm begging you." "Amber, you said no strings attached, remember?" I reminded her gently. She sat up anxiously. "No, Cab, that's not what I meant." There was a note of panic in her voice. "I didn't mean any obligations. I was just asking. I'm not trying to pressure you. Please believe me." I pulled her back. "Okay, calm down, Amber. I just wanted to make it clear. I don't want us to misunderstand each other. Let's be honest and make sure you understand. I'm not going to resume everything that we had." She sobbed softly. "I know," she whispered. "I wish we could. But I know it's impossible. You said we could be friends. Friends can be close, right? I will accept whatever you're willing to give, Cabrick." "Amber, I don't want you to waste your time pining for me," I told her. "Yes, we can be friends. If we're attracted to each other, you're a beautiful woman. We can be close. I think I'll always have feelings for you, but we can't be together. I would be afraid all the time that something would go wrong. You say you've changed, and I believe you. The problem is that you were that kind of person before when I fell in love with you. Then, you changed. I will always wonder if it can happen again. Next time I may turn 65 or 70 and it will be too late to start all over again. We both need to focus on what we want from life and not dwell on the past. Do you understand what I mean? Yes, she nodded. Yes, Cab. I'm sorry that I ruined everything and we can't spend the rest of our lives together. But we can be friends forever, right? We're going to be the joint parents of the girls, and until we find someone else, we can handle this, right? I hugged her. Yes, we can handle it, but we must not give Daisy and Toby a false impression. They probably won't like the idea of our reunion. They won't respect me and they won't approve of you. They might think you're trying to manipulate me. Can I stay the night? She asked. We'll set the alarm and I'll be back in my bed at 5 a.m. That's what we did. When the alarm went off, she got up and kissed me before quietly slipping out the door. From then until she moved in 2 weeks later, she would sneak into my room when the girls were falling asleep, eager to satisfy us. I missed our usual intimacy. It seems that she did too, because even after moving in, she continued to visit me at least twice a week. She opened a successful moped rental business for tourists. The girls worked for her on weekends and after school, spending a lot of time with her. Their relationship seemed to have improved. They mentioned that she met with American tourists from time to time. The first time she stayed the night after I heard this, I took the defense out of the drawer before we got down to business. Why are you doing this? What is it? She asked. Don't use it, Cabrick. I prefer without it. I'm just being careful, I explained. Why? What is it? She asked. You've never done this before. I heard you were dating someone, I replied. She laughed. Okay, I get it. I haven't slept with anyone else, Cab. If I do, I'll let you know so you can use the protection. I learned my lesson after we broke up. I had an unpleasant experience and had to see a doctor. If I'm with someone else, protection is mandatory. I heard you're dating too. Do I have anything to worry about? No, I haven't been with anyone else, I assured her. You more than satisfy me. I haven't found anyone I like more than you. Me too, she admitted. I won't find anyone as good as you. I was stupid, Cab. I was more than happy to oblige. I met Drusilla Consuela Ciaballa Rios about a year after Amber moved out of our house. Daisy wanted a horse, and Drusilla was a horse breeder. She bred black Spanish horses with long flowing manes and tails. Drusilla was tall, dark-haired and aristocratic, with a beautiful, seductive figure that radiated sensuality. Her long, glossy black hair matched the horses she raised. We met first to talk about horses, and she quickly took a liking to girls who were naturally easy to fall in love with. Just like her. We met with her twice for lunch, once at a restaurant, and the second time at her house where we made a purchase. She spoke English with a delightful accent, and her house was immaculately clean. The grounds were magnificent, and the horses were magnificent creatures. Although I wasn't interested in horses, Daisy was, and I was interested in Daisy. Soon I also became interested in Drusilla. I invited her to dinner and dance, and to my surprise, she agreed. When we first met, she wasn't wearing a wedding ring, but it was clear that she had been wearing it for a long time. There was a distinctive dent on her ring finger. Over dinner and drinks, we exchanged stories. I told her about Amber, and she told me about her ex-husband, who was a real playboy when they got married, and obviously thought he could continue to lead this lifestyle. He must have been crazy. Anyone who didn't like Drusilla had to be an imbecile. I found myself dreaming just by looking at her and listening to her talk. She invited me to a club she was a member of, and we had a wonderful time. She was an amazing dancer. I felt like a teenager at a prom. We arrived at the club in our cars, and when I walked her to her car, she kissed me so hard that my hair almost caught fire. "Call me Cabrick," she said. "I had a wonderful time and would like to see you again." We met a couple of times a week for 2 months before things got off the ground. She invited me to her house for a picnic. We went to one of her horse pastures by the river that flowed there. We were sitting on a blanket under the willows, and I leaned against one of them, and she settled between my legs, pressing her back against me. I hugged her, and we talked for a long time after we ate. She leaned her head back on my shoulder and looked up at me. "Make love to me, Cabrick," she whispered. "Here?" I asked. She giggled. "Yes, Aqui. No one will see us. We live in seclusion." I did not miss this opportunity. This experience was unlike any of the casual encounters I had before Amber came into my life. She was on a completely different level, a mixture of sultry heat, fire, and silky softness, all in one explosive bottle. It was a wonderful experience. We relaxed a little, and I admired her amazing body in the dimming light. Then we got dressed and headed back to the house. "Cabrick, I want you to stay the night," she said. "We have to inform the girls." I laughed. "Well, you tell them, Drusilla." She gave me a radiant smile and sent them a message full of emojis. Her phone buzzed twice, and she smiled again as she read the answers. "They want photos," she said. We laughed, and she dragged me to bed. I thought I'd had enough for today, but she convinced me otherwise. The next morning, she made me breakfast, and we talked for a while. "Cabrick," her big brown eyes stare intently into mine. "Do you love me?" I choked slightly on my juice, and she laughed. I loved the sound of her laughter. For a moment I didn't respond, just gathering my thoughts. Her eyes continued to sparkle at me. I think she enjoyed my discomfort. "Drusilla, my life is very complicated," I told her. "To answer your question, yes. I love you. We've only known each other a few months, but I love everything I've discovered about you. You're stunning, funny, witty, and smart. You're independent and an excellent businesswoman. You make love like a volcano. Yes, I love you. However, my life is complicated. My daughters depend on me, and I had them before I met you. This is a prior commitment I have." "I understand," she nodded. "This is what I would expect from you. Drusilla would be loved, but daughters are loved too. How could it be otherwise?" "And there's Amber," I added. "We're divorced, but we're co-parents. I have a commitment to her as well, not a romantic one. We're divorced, and I've explained why. We shared beds before I met you. We haven't done that since our first date, but I need to tell her about us and see what it means to her. Do you understand?" She nodded again. "Of course. Do you still love her, Cabrick?" "Yes, I suppose I do," I admitted. "I'm not in love with her, if that's what you mean. We were married for a long time. She genuinely seems to have changed and become the woman I married again. I don't want to send her into a tailspin." She didn't say anything, but I could see the wheels turning behind her eyes. She seemed satisfied, and after a while she walked me to my car. She gave me a kiss that left me weak-kneed, her eyes smoldering. I felt as light-hearted on the way home as I had since the insurrection. As soon as I walked through the door, the girls were all over me. "This is so awesome," Daisy exclaimed as she hugged me tightly from one side. Toby was on the other, and I looked at her questioningly. "Yeet," she said, and I assumed it was a good thing. It seemed like they were planning my wedding right then and there. I was dreading an uncomfortable conversation with Amber. However, my worries were unfounded. I didn't see what was coming. Amber dropped by 2 days later, throwing herself at me with hugs and kisses as soon as she walked in. I was completely confused. "Cab, I'm so happy for you," she said excitedly. "Drusilla came to see me. I love her, Cab. She's perfect for you. This also makes it so much easier to tell you something I've been avoiding. I've met someone, Cab." That someone turned out to be a French expat named Maxime, whom I called Max. He didn't seem to mind. He was a genial guy, and I liked him right away. He appeared to be very devoted to Amber. He and the girls got along well enough. They found him harmless, but unremarkable. To me, he seemed perfect for Amber. She loved Drusilla, and Max was speechless around her. My only issue now was a new uprising. My daughters, my ex-wife, and my girlfriend seemed to be conspiring to get me married as quickly as possible. I didn't even remember proposing. Before I knew it, I was being dragged off to shop for rings, and we had a June wedding. Drusilla looked stunning, and my daughters were beautiful. Amber orchestrated the entire event, and we were whisked away in a limousine to the airport. Max had arranged a honeymoon in France, where he still owned a house in Nice. I knew I was in for an adventure. Drusilla was the stereotypical, fiery, emotional, and very sensual Latin lover. Not only that, but I realized there was a new boss in town. I thought I'd be happy under her rule.